days after the live cattle ban by the Julia Gillard government, the class action compensation remains in limbo.
Hey, it has been a hot button issue here at Beef 2024. Let's bring in Troy Setter, CEO of the Consolidated Pastoral Company. Troy, we know that claimants, the government, are at loggerheads over this. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Look, to be honest, at the moment there's not. It's been dragging out for, as you said, 13 years. We're tied up in court again, explaining and arguing things that have already been proven by court. We've already won the court case, and the government continues to slow this down and add costs to the Australian taxpayers.
Tracy Hayes gave quite the spray to the PM and Murray Watt the other night at dinner. What did you make of it?
Look, I think it was quite a fair wrap-up of where we're at from Tracy, and I think we're all being asked to show leadership and resolve this case, and that hasn't been happening. I think if you look at the big pressures in Australia at the moment, one of them is cost of living for all Australians, but particularly for those that are doing it tough at the moment. This case is costing the Australian taxpayer $150,000 a day. I mean, imagine if a school a day got $150,000 or a bunch of community groups got $150,000 a day, how much better off they'd be. And if you annualise that, and this has been going for years, where we pushed over $1 billion in wasted cost in interest and legal fees, plus the compensation that this has dragged out. It's just ridiculous.
So for those who haven't been following this closely, what is the next step? They've put the delay in.
So the next step is we've got a couple more court hearings that are more objective, more about administration. The federal government needs to resubmit some evidence that they think that they've got, and we're not back into court until well into next year for a month. So it's really another year's delay at least $150,000 a day.
What impact is this having on producers involved in this action?
Look, it's really dragged the producers down that are involved in this action. They just want to get on with it. I know multiple people who've died since this. So the Brett Cattle Company that led this. So Dougal Brett, who was the front and the face with Emily, Dougal's passed away. His father's passed away. There's multiple people that have died of old age. There's families that have broken up or had to sell their properties and their assets because you can't wait for 13 years for compensation. And so there's a lot of people that have lost their houses, family farm. People have died. In terms of stress, I would get a call probably every fortnight from a producer who just rings me to sort of unload, I suppose, about the stress that they've been facing and the unknown. And also, I think there's some real implications just from perception with the Indonesian side that are a real issue.
Troy, Murray Watt insists that he's not going to send the cattle trade down the same path as sheep. Are you confident in his comments?
Yeah, I am. I've spoken to Murray about it plenty of times. He's put on the record that he supports the cattle trade and it won't be closed, won't be going anywhere, and not just in this term of government, but long term. And the PM has said multiple times that the cattle trade is essential. I'd absolutely like them to review their decision on the sheep trade. The sheep trade has changed dramatically now. We absolutely have lower mortality rates on a ship than we do in the paddock. The success rate of sheep being shipped overseas now is much better than truck transport in Australia. It's a totally different industry, but we haven't had the chance to review that because there's no mechanism in the current government's structure to allow there to be a review of their decision, which based on current science, but also a couple of years of really successful results. So that's really disappointing.
Keeping that live corp hat on for a moment,
yes.
What R&D is underway to improve animal welfare?
So we've got R&D underway that's around bedding, around virtual assessment of livestock so that we're matching them to pens and weights. There's always work being done about respiratory disease. We've done a whole lot of nutrition work recently where we've simulated animals in pens of all different stocking densities on shore in Australia. We've actually got approval to elevate stress levels higher than what they have on the ship to see what that looks like, and we've been able to learn from that and reduce mortalities and stress to nearly zero, which is great.
More broadly, live export, does it have a genuine future?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, that much of Northern Australia and Western Australia is suited to producing cattle or sheep that are grown, not fully finished. They don't suit the abattoir trade. The soil types and the environmental types across much of Australia suit those animals being sent to Southeast Asia or the Middle East for growing out and fattening. There's a huge reliance from Indigenous communities and rural and regional communities across Northern Australia. Geopolitically, the supply of fresh meat into countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines and the Middle East group is so important for Australia. We've seen the Qatari government and the Saudi government be very clear that if the Australian government cuts off their food supply, there will be repercussions into other industries like grain, which wouldn't be good to see. The other thing is we probably don't appreciate often is just the huge dairy trade that goes out of Australia, out of southern Australia. Massive numbers of live animals are shipped and flown throughout Asia and Europe and the Middle East as the world, the developing world wants more milk and more milk products like cheese and ice cream and things. Australia is the leading supplier of dairy cattle to the world.
Do It for Dolly Day today. Yes. You're obviously on the advisory board. What does it mean to you?
Do It for Dolly Day is a difficult day for me. It's celebrating the success of what the Dolly's Dream team has done and the lives we've changed and the work that will never end around reducing bullying, being kind to each other, but also educating parents and schools around social media, around bullying, particularly of young girls, but also boys, but that what actually happens that the teachers or the school doesn't see and the parents don't see. So there's a huge amount of work on that, but it's also another day that we remember that Dolly tragically took her own life, and even in your reception here this morning, one of your team came up to me and said that his nephew, niece committed suicide at the same age as Dolly recently, and it's just tragic that we still have those things going on.
Troy Setter, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking about the new gap year on Aussie Farms. Forget the south of France. We're heading to Aussie Farms. We'll be right back.